Is the Wim Hof Method a scam? If you search breathwork online, you will almost immediately find the Wim Hof Method. Nowadays, it's one of the most popular breathwork approaches. But is it actually good for you, or can it be even dangerous? Some people heal themselves with this method and feel great, but some have major health issues and some even died practicing it. I'm a breathwork specialist. I spent my entire career researching the impact of breathwork on humans, and for the past 9 years, I've taught more than 10,000 students around the world to use breathing exercises to solve a wide variety of problems and to optimize their health. And of course, I'm really familiar with the Wim Hof Method. So, I want to be very transparent. The goal of this video is not to only criticize the Wim Hof Method. My goal is to analyze the Wim Hof Method with honesty. I'm going to talk about its origin, the good things about it, the bad things about it, its impact on health, and the downsides. By the end of this video, I want you to understand the benefits and the limitations of this approach so that you know when it's good to use it and when and why you can hurt yourself and how you can get the most out of it. So let's go. First, let's quickly talk about the origin of the Wim Hof Method. The Wim Hof Method is a simplified version of Tibetan Buddhist practice called tumor breathing. Tumor breathing is also known as inner fire meditation. In Tibetan mountains, you will sometimes meet monks sitting on the snow almost naked for hours, sometimes even days, and showing an incredible resistance to such rough environments. They do it as a part of their spiritual development. So, what Wim Hof did is that he took this tumor breathing concept and made it into something easier to do for a broad audience of people. He removed the extension meditation training, he removed the years of Buddhist philosophy learning that monks usually have to go through before they can start to practice tumor, and he also simplified the breathing sequence a lot, so it is very basic and easy to follow for everyone. The Wim Hof method got very popular because Wim Hof himself is a little bit of a crazy guy. He got tons of media attention because he was doing some extraordinary things like climbing Everest in short, putting himself in ice for almost an hour, injecting toxins into his body to show that he can fight it just by using his own breathing. So all sorts of this crazy stuff. I think in total he has like 18 Guinness records, and all these records are based on his ability to control his body and mind under extreme conditions. Today, the public opinion about Wim Hof is very divided. There are a lot of people who follow his method and love it, and there are people who think that he's a dangerous man who needs to be stopped. There is even an ongoing $67 million lawsuits against him, and there are many petitions of doctors and scientists who try to close his practice from the public use. Quite a lot of drama. So, it is my turn now to give my opinion. So, let's look at the Wim Hof Method benefits. There are 3 main elements in the Wim Hof Method: a special breathing sequence, cold exposure, and mind control techniques. First, let's talk about cold exposure. Is it healthy to submerge yourself in cold water? I was born in Russia. It's a part of our tradition to go into cold water or jump into snow without clothes. It is kind of fun activities in countries with cold climates. And in the past decades, scientists got interested in cold exposure and started to study it. So, studies show that the controlled cold exposure has tons of benefits on human body, like improving metabolism, boosting immune system, it promotes better blood circulation and trains cardiovascular system, and it reduces inflammation in the body. This type of training also develops better stress resistance and make you emotionally resilient. So, if practiced smartly, cold exposure is a great tool for your body. I personally love cold exposure, and to be fully honest with you, I started to practice it regularly because of Wim Hof. I haven't lived in Russia for the past 12 years. I was mainly staying in hot climates, so I didn't have access to snow or cold lakes. But because of Wim Hof, my husband and I made a cold plunge in the house, and we almost daily take cold baths. So, there are no questions that because of Wim Hof, cold exposure became popular. Now, every 10th house in California has a cold plunge. I think it's a big achievement. Now, what about the breathing sequence in the Wim Hof method? What are the benefits of this sequence? And honestly, this is my favorite part. I can talk about breathing forever. I'm so passionate about it. So, training your breathing is one of the best things you can do for your health. There are tons of studies about it, and many people who had never done breathwork before started from the Wim Hof method. Why? Because he just helped to spread it around and make it more popular, and that's amazing. The breathing technique that he recommends to do regularly is called compensated hyperventilation technique. It means that you first hyperventilate by breathing faster and deeper for a few cycles, and after that you hold your breath to compensate this fast breathing. What it means is that you kind of juggle with your oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in your body. This type of techniques shakes your nervous system, boosts your immune system, train your cardiovascular system, and many would feel more peaceful after doing it. It's a good approach, but it should only be used for very specific situations. I sometimes use similar breathing exercises when working with some of my customers, but there are limitations to it. For some people, these practices can be dangerous, and it is important to understand when you should use it and when you absolutely should avoid it. So, if you do Wim Hof breathing, you have to know if it is good for you, or maybe you should firstly focus on fixing the foundation of your breathing and do some other type of breathing exercises. If you would like to learn about your breathing a little bit more, I made a free breathing test, and you can find this test in the link in the description to this video. So take it, it's super easy and fun to follow, and it's going to give you a lot of interesting information about your breathing, obviously, and about your overall health. You can even go and take the test right now and come back to this video a little bit later. So, the third element of the Wim Hof method is about mind training. It is always a good idea to strengthen your mind. When you constantly do uncomfortable things like submerging yourself in cold water, you train your mind. Wim Hof also would suggest some visualization technique to help you go through this discomfort. Now, let's go into the things that I don't like about the Wim Hof method. The main problem I see with the Wim Hof method, and that's also true for many of the other breathwork trainers, is that they don't have enough scientific and physiological knowledge, so that they just blindly follow some specific breathing exercises without explaining it to the people and without even sometimes understanding the mechanism behind these breathing exercises themselves. So because many people don't understand how this specific breathing exercise would impact their body, they kind of do mistakes and they hurt themselves because of that. The other thing that I dislike about the Wim Hof method is his tendency to force people to go to extremes. So, when it comes to cold exposure, for example, we already agreed that it has great benefits on your body if practiced smartly, but you don't want to go crazy with cold exposure. Studies show that 8 to 11 minutes of submerging yourself in cold water a week is enough to have all the great benefits from it. The problem though is that sometimes Wim Hof is a bit too pushy. He himself goes to the extreme of cold exposure for media attention. And honestly, I don't care, this is his decision. The problem with that is that firstly, it impacts other people and they think that they should go to the cold as much as the Wim Hof does in order to have these great benefits, or they just get this competitive feeling and start to overuse cold exposure. And the other problem with that is that I often see Wim Hof pushing other people to be as extreme as he is. Like we could see in this video that he had with Yes Theory, is that he was pushing these guys to stay in cold forever without any preparation. This is crazy. This is not a good example to people out there. So, as we say in Russia, everything can be poison, nothing can be poison. It's all about the dose. So it's important to remember that in anything we do, we have to keep in mind that there is always a point where you get maximum benefits. And then crossing this point, you start to have the opposite effect. You start to overwhelming your body. So if you will start to go into the cold water for really long periods of time and push yourself, you will eventually get to this level that you wouldn't get just the benefits from doing it. You will also start to overwhelm your body from doing it. And then you will use extra energy for nothing that you could use somewhere else. And by pushing yourself even more, it can actually start to have a bad health impact. So never go crazy with whatever you do. Take it progressively. Feel this perfect point where it just gives you all the benefits without switching into going to the extremes. The third thing I dislike about the Wim Hof method is the breathing sequence itself. Well, here I'll need to explain a little bit more, because it's not that this sequence is a little bit bad. It's kind of narrow approach. Let me tell you a story. So I had a client who was actually one of my neighbors when I was living in California, and he had a heart attack when he was in his 40s. It scared him a lot, so he searched online what he can do to improve his health, and he found out that breathwork is a good thing to do, which is true. At that time, everybody talked about the Wim Hof method, so he started to practice it daily because he really wanted to feel good again, and he wanted to prevent himself from having another heart attack. And when I met him for the first time, the first thing he told me that he tried the Wim Hof method, but he felt like it was wrong, and he stopped it. I was so relieved to hear that, because if he will continue to do it, then there is a big risk that he will end up in another heart attack. Because this type of breathing exercises can really overwhelm your body, and you shouldn't do them regularly for sure, and you absolutely shouldn't do them when you have some specific health conditions. I had another woman that just recently came to me, and the reason was that she suddenly started to have panic attacks, even though she didn't have any for the past 2 years. So when I started to go a little bit deeper and understanding what did she change in her life that it's again triggered her panic attacks, we actually found out that she exactly a month ago started to do the Wim Hof method breathing sequence. She thought it's something that will help her to deal with her anxiety, but it actually did the exact opposite effect that provoked her panic attacks again. Because these type of breathing exercises don't suit people who have panic attacks and anxiety. They should do the exact opposite type of breathing techniques in order to not shake their nervous system even more, to not give this food for their nervous system to go to this crazy reaction as a panic attack. So, I would never give this type of breathing exercise to a random person, because it creates a lot of pressure on the body, and it can be dangerous. I also would never give this breathing sequence as a daily routine. To explain it simply, you can think of breathwork as going to the gym. It's a great thing to do regularly. It's going to improve many areas of your health, and you will feel the difference. But the Wim Hof breathing practice is like running a 100-meter sprint, full speed. It might feel good a couple times, but if you do it all the time, you're definitely going to hurt yourself. And there are so many other exercises in the gym that you should do to have a balanced body. So, if you are currently following the Wim Hof method, I really recommend you to take the breathing test I have below to make sure that all your breathing foundations are good, because otherwise it can be a little bit too much for you to do this breathing technique regularly. And now, the last thing I don't like about the Wim Hof method, and that's arguably the worst one, is hyperventilation in the water. I'm a free diver. I love to dive with whales, dolphins, etc. It's fun, and where I live, I can have a lot of access to that. And within the free diving community, many people really hate Wim Hof. There are petitions that are trying to cancel him because what he teaches killed quite a few people, and this is why there is a $60+ million lawsuit filed against him. To be fair, since they received a lot of criticism, Wim Hof company put some disclaimers and messages on their website to try to prevent people from doing this one specific thing wrong. But still, many people simply didn't understand the basic knowledge about how the breathing exercise from the Wim Hof method can impact the body. And Wim Hof himself doesn't explain it either, so that is why we have all these sad stories online. So to explain it simply, when you do Wim Hof breathing sequence, you hyperventilate. And when you hyperventilate, which means that you breathe faster and deeper, you change the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your body. And when you do that, you can pass out and pretty easily. The reason for that is that when you're exhaling more carbon dioxide, your breathing receptors are not sensitive anymore to the increase of the carbon dioxide. And as a result, when your oxygen level gets to the critical level, you don't feel it as strongly anymore. You might feel extremely comfortably, and as a result, you don't even know that you are about to pass out, that you are about at this critical level, and here you go. If you pass out while being on your yoga mat or on your bed, it is fine. But the problem with the Wim Hof method that he has the cold exposure involved in his method. So many people do these breathing exercises while they are in the water. And as a result, if you pass out in the water and there is nobody around who can rescue you, you're dead. And this exact thing that people hyperventilate before going to dive happen to a lot of people. So remember, never breathe fast and deep before going into the water or while being in the water. It is unsafe and has no use. Nobody does it. Free divers don't do it. It is very old freediving practice that killed a few people before they figured out that it's dangerous to hyperventilate before diving. So, to summarize, the Wim Hof method isn't a scam. It is basically a tiny part of tumor breathing made easy for the masses. It has helped a bunch of people feel better, but the method is very narrow, focusing mainly on hyperventilation and intense cold exposure, which is only good for a very small group of people and unfortunately can be dangerous for others and has killed a few people as well. If you want to do breathwork because you want to be healthier, I would say don't limit yourself to the Wim Hof method. There is a whole world of breathing exercises out there that can be tailored just for you without pushing only into hyperventilation exercises. You can find a bunch of other people giving free breathwork sequences online which are great. My only advice is to make sure that the person who gives the sequence knows what they do and understand the science behind these breathing exercises. And if you didn't already, I really recommend you to take the free breathing test I made to see your breathing profile and what you should ideally work on. And then you will know what to do. Remember to train your breathing, guys. And I will see you really soon.